So I'm here by myself. Melissa is at home, as you'd expect. She's not giving up on boat work. A few people said last week, oh, you know, don't stop the boat work just because you're pregnant, and she's not. She's just being a bit more careful. I'm here today. It's horrible, horrible weather. It's freezing cold. So I'm here today and tomorrow. I'm going to sleep on the boat by myself. Oh, kettle's boiling. And I'm going to be painting. And one thing I don't want Melissa exposed to at the minute is horrible epoxy fumes. So yeah, this afternoon painting. But first, cup of tea. Right, viewers, let me explain the paint again. Those of you who've watched us from the start will know exactly what we're doing paint-wise, but let me explain it for those of you who haven't watched. It's quite interesting. This stuff here is called Jotun 87. So it's made by a company called Jotun, in fact, Jotun 87. It's a primer. It's an epoxy primer. It's off-white and it's designed to be applied directly to steel. We've spoken to Jotun's technical department, and you do not need to use a rust inhibitor underneath it. They haven't tested it with all the different rust inhibitors, so their recommendation is no, just you paint it straight on. Obviously you get rid of the rust mechanically as far as possible, but it's incredibly tough stuff. They use this on oil rigs in the North Sea and commercial shipping, and it's applied in less than ideal situations. So this is the stuff, Jotun 87. The 87 comes in very limited colours. The Jotun 90 is the exact same paint, but you can have more colours. Along with that, because it's an epoxy, you have a hardener or a catalyst. And the hardener we're using, if you notice, has got, can you see there, WG, and WG stands for winter grade. So the winter grade hardener is much more tolerant. I will put up here above my left shoulder the spec for the kind of temperature issues for how you can apply the Jotun 87 with the winter grade hardener. Should I require thinning this paint at all, which I may do depending on how it's going on, thinner's number 17, and then of course I've got my mixing pots, and look, big brush. Everybody says I've never seen anybody paint a boat with such small brushes. Well, I'm going to use a big brush. In fact, I think that one's overkill. Oh, I don't like using a big brush like that for such a... Anyway, I'll use a big brush. I'll keep everybody happy. And I've got my gloves. I'm going to be painting outdoors, as horrible as it is. It's due to pour with rain tomorrow, but not till lunchtime. So I'm hoping if I can get the paint on today, it'll have time to shell over by this evening, harden up a little bit overnight, and then by the rain tomorrow lunchtime we'll be fine. And then it takes several weeks to dry off completely. So that's the paint I'm using. I will say I'm glad Melissa and Jack aren't here, because it's flipping freezing. It's really not ideal temperature for painting, but I'm just glad I've got this Jotun stuff that's so tolerant of oh no, you are kidding me. Look, as I'm talking, look what's happened. It's literally started bucketing it down. Well, that's that. No painting. Oh my goodness. Well, that's annoying, but it's also, I'm flipping glad I hadn't started and got a load of fresh paint on that steel. Oh, that's so annoying. Right, bear with me, because I'm going to have to think of something else to do in this episode then. Oh no! Well, it's the next morning. It's dry. It's been dry all night. It hasn't rained. The sky is grey, and I'm considering now having a crack at the cockpit and just keeping an eye on it and just praying it doesn't rain. The bottom line is this is only primer anyway, so if something bizarre did happen, we have to flat this back before the next coat, so it wouldn't be like a massive disaster. We wouldn't have to strip all the paint off. But without further ado, the kettle's on and I'm going to start mixing now and see if I can get some paint on quickly and then have breakfast. Oh, ow. Right, that's one coat of primer only. Oh my goodness, how am I going to deal with this? One coat of primer on the port side seat top, cockpit coaming, and some of the seat front. I'm going to have some breakfast. I'm going to keep an eye on the weather. Just praying it doesn't rain. If it does, then that's going to get marked, that paint. It's not the end of the world because it's the first coat of primer and it'll need flatting back anyway, but it'll just mean more work when we come to flat back, won't it? So, right, so I've had some breakfast. The weather is exactly the same. It's not great, but I'm going to mix up another pot and see how we get on with the other side. Dog poo bags, by the way, are fantastic for keeping your brushes fresh in between one session and the next. Obviously I can't paint absolutely everywhere because I've still got to be able to get in and out of the boat. So I've got to paint areas like the seats and stuff today that next time I come to paint, when I do the cockpit floor, I can walk on those areas, plus the cockpit floor still needs an awful lot of prep. Okay, the wind noise out here, I'll stay here just while I say this. The wind noise is terrible. I have got my little microphone with my dead cat. I've got the dead cat thing on, so it might be okay, but I'll just walk past and show you what I've done. I can't paint it all, obviously, because I've got to be able to walk in and out the cockpit, and the cockpit floor isn't prepped. The cockpit sole, should I say, for the purists. So that's the cockpit, the bits that I've done, the seat tops, the seat front mostly, the sides of the coamings, etc., etc. And there's another bit that I want to paint in a minute. Last week, you'll remember Nigel welded on the new Cutlass bearing plate. Let's go the other side, the wind's that side. This might be better. Ooh, no, it's no different. So here's our Cutlass bearing housing. And what had happened was the back plate that this bolts to had really badly corroded. So that's all new. So what I want to do is take these off. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. I've also got to sweep off. Right, one. Hang on. Let's do this with one hand. This is why when you start doing things on YouTube by yourself, I mean, I could go and fetch a tripod, but it's kind of the time it takes to go and fetch the tripod and set everything up. There you go, there's another one. There's 4 of them. Hang on, where's the last one? There it is. One-handed. Hang on. There we are. Nut, washer. Okay, so there's our nuts and bolts. I'll slide this Cutlass bearing forwards, or aft rather, and let me show you. That's the Cutlass bearing housing. There's the Cutlass bearing itself. This backing plate has now got to be painted with the last bit of the shaft, the stern tube. So that's all got to be done. I've got the propeller with me, which I'm also going to put on. However, I'm not going to put the propeller on permanently because I want to use some paste to, what do they call it? Valve grinding paste, basically, so that I can get the prop to sit on the shaft really, really, really nicely and spend a bit of time getting that to fit. But I'll put it on for now, just so that we don't lose it, apart from anything else. Right, let's get that bit painted. And the other thing I want to do another coat of is the keel itself, because we need several coats of paint on the keel. I don't think I'm going to do the keel today. I don't think I'm going to have time. So I'll mix up another pot of paint to do the inside of the keel box. And while I've got that pot of paint running, I will nip outside and do the Cutlass bearing housing. How does that sound? Right, what I've got laid out here on the bench in the pilot house is a whole load of different paints. I've got Jotun 87, which is the primer. I've got the Jotun, what's this one called? Yeah, the 87A, which is the aluminium coloured one, which I'm going to use for the inside of the keel box. And I've got various kind of, I don't really want to use that. That's a Sherwin-Williams red oxide coloured 2-pack epoxy primer. So it's kind of the same stuff, but I don't really want to mix and match. And all of these tins have had some taken out of them, but they're all still good. They're all still in date, so they'll all work absolutely fine. I'm actually chatting to a company. I get all my paints through a Pro Marine store. Link in the description and link up here above my left shoulder. Pro Marine store, and they've supplied me with all the paints for this, and which has been amazing. And through them, I'm now talking to a company called SML. So we're hopefully getting a load more paint soon to kind of finish the job. All I need to do is get a coat of a primer, at least one coat of primer everywhere possible. And Melissa's just texted me to say that on Monday, I'm not available Monday, but on Monday she's hoping to come down to the boat to paint the bathing platform. So she wants me to leave everything out here for her so that it's minimal effort for her, and she'll be painting outdoors, so there's no worries with fumes. Right, so I'm just going to have some pasta and pesto, and then let's get the keel box painted. Okay, all sailing channels, Vagabond, Delos, all of the big sailing channels do cooking on their channels. Even Barry has been known to bake some dodgy looking bread. So oh no, I've turned the gas off, hang on. So I'm going to do some cooking, and to make pasta and pesto, here's the way I do it. I put some pasta in a pan and I boil it until it's kind of mushy, and then I drain off the water. Yeah, so I drain off the water, right? Then what I do is I get some pesto and I put some in the pasta and I mix it up like that, and then I eat it. And that is the extent of cooking that you're going to get from me on this channel, and it's actually very nice. Oh yeah, I'll eat it out the pan as well. I had got a bowl out, but I can't be bothered to wash it up, so I'm just going to eat it out of the pan. It's brutal out here still. Before I paint this keel box, just going to get a breath of fresh air because it's a little bit painty, fumy in there. It's looking all right though, isn't it? For those of you inclined to point out all of the mistakes and errors, I have seen them. There's lots of mistakes and errors, don't worry. Feel free to point them out. But having one of the advantages of painting like that, oh, can you hear me? You might be able to. One of the advantages I personally find of painting out an area is it reveals other things that you've missed. Because on a project this size, you prep and prep and prep, and you think you've got it all, and then you paint it and you think, oh, okay, there's bits I missed there. So, and I'm not too worried about that. That's fine. The first coat of primer shows you a few bits that you think, oh yeah, I could do a better job in that corner or that little bit there. So that's fine. There's several more coats of paint to go on, and having done the first one, like I say, I've seen other bits that I've missed. Can you tell me what that boat is? Almost got a little pilot house in it. Lovely. It is actually spitting with rain now. Not a lot, just a few drops. I painted a little while ago, a couple of hours ago, so I'm hoping that the worst of it is, this is not good, but it's not the end of the world with this paint, as I say. It's pretty tolerant of crap conditions, but this is a real test for it. I'm just going to go down here because I walked down here a minute ago and I was just getting a breath of fresh air. And I noticed a new boat in the yard, and I filmed it, and I spoke to you guys about it on camera. And then I noticed that the cable for the microphone was across the lens. So I'm just coming down to have another look, because it's a heck of a thing. Looks like a bit of a project boat. If it comes up for sale, I'll be telling Mark from Wildling Sailing about it. Look at this. I think it's fiberglass. It's a catch. I'm going to turn you around, watch. There you go. Look at that. That's a beastie. That's a hell of a thing. Yeah, I think it's fiberglass, you know. It certainly isn't steel, and it doesn't look like ferro. You all right? Yeah. You know what? I love this. I love being on the boat by myself. Don't get me wrong, I love it when Melissa and Jack are on the boat working with me as well. But I absolutely love being on the boat by myself, cracking on with some work, take a little walk, look at the boat, and getting out in the weather and feeling the rain. It's just, yeah, I love it. I'm very happy with my own company and in my own skin and that kind of thing. Which I suppose for long night passages when Melissa's asleep is no bad thing. And I guess even when you're sailing with your family, the sea's a lonely place if it's just you lot. But now I'm in my element doing this. Yeah, so that's what I was saying about the cockpit. I've done the seats and tops. I've done most of the seat sides. I've done the cockpit combings. There's bits there that you can see that need doing, and you feel free to point them out, but I've already seen them. And there's a lot more prep needing to be done in the cockpit sole, cockpit floor. But we're getting there, eh? Bit by bit. I just try not to brush up against any of my fresh paint. And as I say, it is now spitting with rain, so it's a real test of this Jotun winter grade paint. It's above temperature. The temperature's fine. It's chilly in the wind. It's chilly in the wind, but the temperature is actually fine for painting. It's just the moisture in the air. But I figure if they use it on oil rigs in the North Sea, they can't wait for a good day then, can they? They're not going to wait for a good day to paint in the middle of the North Sea on an oil rig. Right, now we'll get on with this Keel Box. So for those of you that haven't seen how this kind of all fits together, I'll just move a few bits here. Here's how it works. This section of the floor, look, let me just angle you down slightly. There we are. This section of the floor, we've got floor boards on one side where there is a bladder tank, boards on the opposite side which are a bladder tank, but all this centre section is our keel box. Let me show you. We've got a piece of timber that comes out here. There's one. I'm missing a piece actually. And a piece of timber that comes out here, which I've got to lift the pipe up for the anchor, the winch, the keel winch. There we are. So this piece of timber comes out. And that reveals 3 panels of steel, plus a great big chunky piece here. The great big chunky piece here is where the mast compression support post fits. So that comes off like so. And that's crazy thick. That's like, I don't know, 15mm thick or 16mm thick steel. And then we've got a forward piece with an overlap. There we are. And then we've got a centre piece. And then we've got the piece at the aft end, which I'll wiggle out in a minute. And that there is where the keel lives. The keel that's currently outside. And it sits on a pin. Let me show you. So, can we see? Oh, hang on, kettle's boiling. 1 second. It sits on that pin. See this stainless steel pin here? There you go. The whole keel pivots on that pin. And then there's a cable which comes up and through this piece of tubing to a winch which is in here and has a winch handle. And that's how the keel goes up and down. And what I've got to do now is paint that out. Not too difficult, because it's nice and dry and warm in here. So that's my job now. Melissa's texting me. Right, come and have a quick look. I'll turn the light on. Oh, is that better? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool, cool. So, what have I done? I've done a coat of epoxy on the inside of the keel box. Don't look too closely, it's the first coat, but that now looks like this. Can you see? I'm not sure how well that's going to come out on camera, but that is all brand new steel coated with the best quality epoxy money can buy. And yeah, I've got a bit on the floor. Fortunately, those sole boards are just the plywood base, so I'm going to spend a minute or two in a minute just getting some thinners and getting the worst of that up from there. In the meantime, let me also show you, hang on, let me also show you, I've painted the Cutlass bearing. I just had to do that kind of quickly because I just had to use what was left in the end of the pot, do you know what I mean? At the bottom of the pot of paint. So have a quick look at this. Hang on. One of these days I'm going to smack my head coming out of there. Hopefully you can hear me. I've still got my little microphone thingy on. But yeah, the Cutlass bearing kind of backing plate is now all painted up. Look. There you go, that's all painted up. Again, it'll get several coats before I reassemble the whole thing, so that's fine. Oh, tripping over. So it'll get, I'm not sure, I think probably 5 coats of primer, and then we're using a hard top like a shell, obviously a final coat. The thing about the Jotun 87 primer, which I'll say very quickly, is it's not porous, it's completely waterproof and stable and UV blah blah blah, but it's kind of grainy, so it picks up dirt quite easily. And the XP hard top, or if you put like a harder shell over the top, that's got more of a gloss hard finish which doesn't hold dirt. So there are certain areas on the boat where you think, oh, that looks filthy, and it's just because the Jotun 87 primer has got a kind of grainy surface, which is what you want for keying to, but that's why. There's one bolt sheared there as well that I've got to replace. There we are. Like this. And in actual fact, it's only this third piece that we need off when we come to install the keel. Plywood base. Yep, that piece goes there. This bit, if you remember, is the keel, the mast compression post plate. That goes there, and let me show you how that looks under there now. Hang on. Can you see what I mean? We've now got this tube, the cable comes down it to winch the keel up and down, and it's these bolts that I've got to replace. These two might be all right actually. I might clean the threads up and inspect them, but I've got bolts to replace them, so it makes sense to replace them, doesn't it? This is really weird, having kind of it's so windy outside. I've got the lid back on the keel box, but there's a gap at the front because I haven't put the front piece in, and it's so windy I could hear something, and I thought, what's that noise? It sounds like some piece of equipment or like a fan, and it's just the wind howling through the keel box. Obviously once that's all sealed down it won't be an issue. Better not be, otherwise the sea will come in. Right, chain plates. And the chain plates on our boat are welded, as you'd expect. It's a metal boat, and we've been over this many times in the past, but a long time ago now since we discussed chain plates. The original chain plates were mild steel, and the what I'm choosing to do, after lots and lots of research, and you can chime in the comments if you think I'm wrong, and I'm sure a lot of you will, but we're going with stainless ones, and we're welding them on with a dissimilar metal rod. Nigel is in charge of that. He's a coded welding instructor, metallurgy guru, and we're doing it this way. Now, I'm going to put some information up here above my shoulder about, if I can find it, that information may not appear because I may not be able to find it in time to edit the video, but about how long a weld needs to be in order to retain its strength. And there's a calculation based on, basically this stainless steel is 10 mil thick and it's 50 millimeters wide, and there's a calculation that says you can weld down X so far, and beyond that you're not actually increasing any strength to the weld. So I've had some people say those chain plates that come through the roof and onto the inside of the cockpit, the coach roof, should come down to here kind of thing, and that's absolute rubbish. Once you go beyond a certain point, you're not actually adding any strength whatsoever. So and the reason we're going for stainless is this. Here's a typical kind of toggle. This is just one that I've taken off the old mast so I get the pin size right. This is all stainless, and you get salt water all over it, and if that pin is going through that and it's mild steel, right, even if you epoxy the living daylights out of this, over time that pin that pin with the rigging is going to wear and twist and wear and twist, and it's going to chip the paint off. It's going to, no way around that. And the result of that is you've then got stainless and mild and salt, and it just increases the chance of corrosion. We can talk about the metallurgy and the chemistry of that all day long, and people, again, I'm sure will chime in the comments and correct me. But the fact is, what we're doing is we're still having a point where the stainless meets the mild steel. There's stainless everywhere on a boat. There's stainless stanchion posts, stainless bits on the steering, but it's about making sure that you can't get a salt, an electrolyte, a salt solution in between those two bits. So here will be stainless to stainless, and the bit where it's stainless to mild will be covered in epoxy, and it won't wear off because there's nothing to chip it off. So that being said, we've got a chain plate, a couple of chain plates here in the saloon, but we've also got one in the heads and one in this forward locker. These panels, as you know, are removable. I've made them, and they're just temporarily screwed up, so I can rip those down nice and easily and put them back up when Nigel comes to weld these on. But what I don't want to do is waste Nigel's time cutting out the timber in the heads, which I'm going to show you now when he comes to weld the chain plates in. Let me show you in the heads the bit that I'm talking about. So this is the heads, which we've stripped out. We've yet to start rebuilding it. It won't take long to rebuild, actually. But this panel here, it's all delaminated because it got wet, leaking through the windows, which we've now resolved. It's bone dry now. But what I want to do, I don't want to wreck all of this timber, but I'm going to cut round. Let's move these out of the way. I'm going to cut round with the multi-tool, the oscillating multi-tool, and find out where the chain plate is. And I'm going to leave, I think I'm going to leave a board around the edge of, because the wood's quite solid. It's only the teak veneer that's peeled off. That's our tarpaulin over the front hatch that's clattering. It's really windy outside. But anyway, going to cut that off with the multi-tool and find out where this chain plate needs to be, and just make access for Nigel to do the welding. But you can, I'll get a photograph if you can't, but you can see the heat mark where the chain plate is just welded straight onto the deck. That's amazing, which just goes to show how strong this is. Loads of people, actually, other boat builders and people have chimed in and said in the past, you don't need to take those chain plates through the roof and weld them to the inside of the coach roof. They're more than strong enough if you just weld them straight on top. You still lift the whole boat on them, and I'm believing that now. Obviously, I still needed to get that done because we'd set fire to that wood and foam if we just tried to weld the new ones on. But that's absolutely brilliant news. I'm so pleased. Don't need to go any further. All I need to do is make sure that when we're welding that area, somebody's on the inside with a damp cloth and, you know, clear off a bit more of that foam. But brilliant news, brilliant news. Okay guys, it's time for me to go home. As you can see, it's pitch dark out there now. The rain spattered and spitted and spattered all day, and but it's not been a torrential downpour. It's just been kind of a moisture in the air. So it will be a really good test of that Jotun 87 winter grade Super Fandango paint to see if it's completely knackered and I've got to sand it off. I don't think I will. I think it'll just need flatting back. I'm really pleased. Got the cockpit, the bulk of the cockpit has got a coat of epoxy on. The keel box is finally nearly completed. We need several more coats of epoxy in the keel box, and then we can start thinking about getting the keel in and getting the lid on and sealed. And once that's done, we can start thinking about, you know, properly rebuilding the interior of the saloon. And I've tackled that issue of how we're going to weld the forward lower chain plates on. They are just the forward lowers. Oh, I'm so pleased. That's a huge amount of progress. Might not seem it to you, but I'm really, really pleased. Melissa is planning to be here in a couple of days, but we'll see if she's feeling really rough. I know today she's texted me saying that she's been feeling just terrible and really bad morning sickness and that kind of thing. So we'll see. It might even be that over the next few weeks, in the early stages of Melissa's pregnancy, with Christmas coming up and stuff, we might go to fortnightly videos. But currently, I think we're okay. We'll stick with what we're doing for now. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I've had a blast just working by myself, listening to films and talking to you guys and doing work on the boat. I say it again, if you're not a subscriber, I think something like 60% of people who watch our videos are not subscribed, and it really helps. So click the subscribe button and click the little notification bell, and then you don't miss an episode, but it really helps boost our channel. And can I also say as well, I think Melissa's going to put a bit on the end of this episode, but thank you so much for all the amazing, lovely comments that you sent to Melissa last week. It made me tear up, just how wonderful and how lovely you all are, and how you're being towards her. And you know, I don't know how the future is going to pan out for us, new baby on the boat and the project and everything like that, but we'll carry on as we are. But just thank you so much for being so lovely to Melissa and for the amazing support. What a lovely crowd you are. See you next time, guys. Look forward to the next episode of Sailing Melody. Bye bye.